Of course, the more companies and enterprises use a solution, the more they demand there be security.
This is the class in the risk management program. And recently, unfortunately, we could only spend 2 full sessions on cybersecurity issues. And what I've promised Susan, Lydia, and Sri is that we could have another discussion on cybersecurity from entrepreneurial standpoint, right? From somebody who is in charge of number of internet initiatives, including apps and group apps. Okay. So my first question is, in your experience, how often are apps used by businesses, organizations, including non-for-profits and government? Because I think that there is a general perception that the apps are not proliferating that much within formal organizations, right? That they're mostly retail product. But I know that also a lot of apps were recently used by many different businesses, particularly during elections, for example, particularly creating political campaigns. So it's governmental organizations, non-for-profit organizations, but perhaps you can talk about some private businesses engaged in apps and how.
Well, I mean, apps is a very broad term. Obviously, we're talking about applications of technology. So app is short for application. And when you're applying technology in all kinds of fields, typically it's very hard to secure everything. There's usually in the security community the idea that you can't really know what every attack vector will be in advance. So you may secure 9 of them, and then the 10th one will appear. There's also something called the trusted computing base, which essentially means that you trust your operating system, your hardware from Apple or Google. And if they decide to do something like pretend that you voted for this person versus that person on your phone, they have or read your bank account, they can probably get that done. So besides that, I just want to say that technology is used all over the place, and we see kind of leaks all the way, including in government, including in enterprise. In fact, we saw a leak of voter databases. In the United States a few years ago, they voted, the entire database was put on Amazon. Somehow all that information was in one place. And so we know what affiliation people had, Democrat, Republican, or whatever they did. Another one is in Israel, they had the entire, pretty much every adult in Israel got their information leaked. The Likud party or database somehow got leaked. Usually it's a fault of a contractor or a subcontractor. So the idea is all the data is in one place. And yes, it is being used in government. And yes, just recently, just a month ago in Brazil, I think it was in Brazil, it leaked the medical records. Hospitals and medical records were leaked of like 100 million people or something of that nature. It's just, when you collect the data, you can expect something might go wrong or someone might hack in.
Let me try to link it directly with idea of apps development, right? Because, and the reason I know apps are applications. By the same token, you can say Microsoft is an application, Safari is an application. We understand that. And we've actually looked over 2 sessions at multiple different type of breaches that occur. And we analyzed specific cases on cybersecurity in large corporations. But in my mind, and somehow I might be wrong because I'm totally not a professional, but in my mind, there is a difference in perception of particularly apps, the one you can kind of download on your Android or you can download on your iPhone, for example, and a sort of solid, large applications supported by massive specialized technology companies, right? And the concern is perhaps that, first of all, with big companies, with big technology companies, with Apple, with Microsoft, with Cisco, et cetera, you have a standard database of, zero problems, right? You have standard database of something that needs to be patched. you've got regular updates, you've got sort of security protocols that are quite common to the industry. And a lot of different users, particular professional users, can relate to that. Is there the same process in all these myriads and thousands of apps? Some of them are very useful for business, used by political parties and campaigns, used in private businesses, used in personal communications of employees.
Well, I mean, let me share my screen to kind of show you the wide range of things just from this year that took place exactly in the types of companies that you talk about. Certainly, when you have more processes, you catch more bugs. In an open source project, often the source is visible to everybody. So it's actually easier in some way to find flaws, but then also the flaws are found over time. More flaws are found, like Linux and so on, BSD and other open source operating systems. And there's an expression: with enough eyes, all bugs are shallow, which means that there's no deep bug because everyone can sort of figure it out, and you can solve more bugs that way. When you don't know the source, you have essentially something called security by obscurity. So it's harder to understand how the system works. But people who do understand and spend the time may actually have 0-day exploits. So 0-day means there's been 0 days and people knew about it and it's been deployed. One such example is Microsoft. Literally just this month, 10th of March, right? Microsoft Exchange, huge exploit. So many companies use Microsoft Exchange. Of course, the more companies and enterprises use a solution, the more they demand there be security in place. Especially government should demand that of their contractors. But as we've seen from the trade winds, for example, that's been used everywhere, sometimes that very trust means that once you compromise, say Microsoft Exchange in this case, you're going to get a lot of organizations compromised at once. You can go into the mall and have a vector of attack. And by the way, the biggest type of attack is usually it's called arbitrary command execution, that you can execute any command on the operating system, let's say as a root user. And sometimes there's even something called a rootkit, which installs it in ring 0, which is essentially the operating system runs in a privileged space. And if you can get in there, sometimes even antivirus can't get you out. So those are pretty rare. But the idea that we trust this trusted computing base from Microsoft, from Apple, sometimes it does get compromised as well, but certainly less than some fly-by-night developer or a small startup. They're probably much more likely, but also people trust them less with the data that they entrust to their apps.
So the concern I think that we have, and we've observed that, is we've learned about bring your own disaster problem, for example, right? Meaning that people often use their personal devices, small devices like iPads and iPhones, when they do their regular work. And that a lot of connectivity is discovered within the applications that unwillingly happen to be collocated, so to speak, and very close to the professional cybersecurity toolkit that doesn't actually cover them, right?
Yeah, I mean, just the other day, just to tell you a bit about my personal life, I was on a date. We went on a date to a place where there was a comedian performing. And the next day, my date texts me and says, look, what got suggested on my Facebook feed. It's that same comedian performing a video somewhere else. And so I said, well, it's probably because he checked into the same place that your phone checked in. And then it turns out Facebook uses your location data anytime it wants when you give it permission. So it uses, see, these companies also have a commercial interest to do this. It's not even hacking. It's just that they have a very, very permissive license from you. Basically says, give us access to your camera, give us access to your location, and then we will help you to do these things. Look at cats, let's say. And so as a result, you do this once, and often it keeps having that information. So Apple is very much on the side of the privacy. They're trying to shut down for example, third-party cookies that track you as you go from website to website. Facebook became so upset by this, they actually went to war with Apple in the court of public opinion, took out articles in various newspapers about how Apple is destroying a very good business model that helps personalize ads to people. Now, I'm sure some people sympathize with that, but Facebook doesn't have that many people sympathizing with it, given its track record. So basically, these corporations are also interested in your data, and sometimes they will take it by hook or by crook. So yeah, if you leave your location on, and even if you don't, there's a nice video with Edward Snowden and talks about how your phone has the IMEI number, or has a MAC address, MAC, which it essentially blasts to every Wi-Fi hotspot as you drive by. It's connecting here, it's connecting there, it's connecting to cell phone towers, it's connecting to stingrays that police have set up. So your phone is basically got an identifier which can be used to track you very easily. And whoever sets up Wi-Fi might actually be able to find out you've been nearby, something like that. If your phone's set up to connect to Wi-Fi, but it's certainly set up to connect to cell phone towers whenever you turn it on, the radios. So that's just a glimpse of like your personal data and how much you're revealing to everyone around you, basically.